Oh, my mic was muted. Oh my god. Hey, Dish. How you doing? Hey, everybody. How's it going? Oh, the one time I remember to mute my mic. The one time I remember to mute my mic. Oh. Hey, Rabbit. Hey, Dish. How y'all doing? Yeah, no, I'm just... What's that? Man, thank you for the resub. I appreciate it. I don't know. I didn't even process that until the alert started playing. Good. Glad to hear it. Love to you too. Yeah, no, I figured tonight's probably going to be a pretty calm night, all things considered, because the Game Awards are going on. So, I just figured I would play some. I want to play more Pokemon, so here we are. And later tonight, provided they're still up to it, me, Rosie, and Flarga will be doing the more of the Ace Attorney rankings and doing the characters. How am I? I'm doing well, thank you for asking. And am I enjoying it? Yeah, I am actually. It is very much it is very, 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 very much Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. But even though I think they could have stood to include some more Platinum things, I think it's still fine. What do they say? Oh yeah, I do know that. Okay. I think this is how we get to Snow Point. Greppa berries. Yup, character rankings, all of them. And it took us 5... What does the fox say? Ooh-ah, pa 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 pow. Pa 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 pow. Ooh-ah, pa 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 pow. No, but yeah, I don't... No, yeah, the character rankings, I'm excited for that. It'll be really fun, because case ranking took us a lot longer than I thought it would take to get through. But I have a feeling that characters will go faster, because there's fewer details to talk about with each character. It did take 5 hours, correct? Yeah, it is. Boom, boom, boom. Now we can finally go into Mount Coronet. They were fun. They were. We definitely talked a lot about those games, actually. These Pokemon, what moves they have and stuff. I can't remember. Who has Thunderbolt? Oh, that's right. I never gave Drifblim Thunderbolt instead of the other thing. Yeah, come on, Nina. Yeah, it's time. Shockwave is good, and I'll probably put it on Gina. It'd be really interesting. Britney Spears, yeah. Britney Spears. Hashtag evolve Britney. What was I gonna do? Oh yeah. Sorry, just looking through my TMs and trying to keep my mind working. That's not Shock. This is Shockwave. Consider teaching Gina Simmons Shockwave. But her special attack and defense, or special attack and attack are not too far apart. So I thought it would be fine, but right now I think I kind of like what I have going on right now. But I think it'd be fun to have Gina Simmons be my type coverage Pokemon. Yeah, let's use Strength. Thank you, Bibarel. I really appreciate that. Geodude, oh great, love that. What are you gonna be able to do? Shit. Oh, you can do this. Yeah, that is a pet peeve of mine. I don't like having to well, the shop list has always been like that, and if you press A on it, they at least will tell you what it is. It is strange, though. God, we get to skip the animation every time. That's really nice. Hello, what are you? A rare candy? Oh, I'll take that. Doesn't Gina evolve in like 3 levels? Yeah, she... No, sorry, not Gina. Sweetheart. I think Sweetheart evolves in like 3 levels, so we'll keep that in mind. Plus special attack on that nature. What a nightmare. Yeah, that's... Rare candies are pretty pog, honestly. Yeah. Oh, isn't this the Feebas room coming up? Yeah. There's another way to use defog. I think... No, I think that's the only way you can use defog. It's fly that you can do some town map. Am I really gonna fish around looking for Feebas? I don't want to. Hey, it's Golbat. I love Golbat. Well, Golbat's my least favorite of the line. I loved Crobat a lot. Mean look, what's that gonna help you with, honey? You think you're gonna do any damage to me like that? Two. God, what I wouldn't give to have skill link on this thing, but I know it can't have skill link, so whatever. Yeah, quick guard, because I think I'm gonna move real fast. Me, the Rhyhorn. That's what I like to see. If I'm fishing for Feebas, I probably should take Sweetheart out of front. Oh, I hit the good rod set, okay. My day's been fine. I haven't really done much today. Not even a nibble. Boring. Hey, sometimes that's all we need, right? The water is so pretty. Yeah, just for the hell of it. My Lotec is my favorite Pokemon, so it feels right. Kind of forgot that they lived here, but how you doing, Agus? So, since the Game Awards is going on, this is a perfect time to ask you guys, what do you guys think your personal game of the year is? It doesn't even have to have come out this year. What is a game that you played this year that you absolutely loved and think it deserves your top spot? Probably Great Ace Attorney 1. I was gonna say mine is the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. For sure, but besides that, Hollow Knight was really up there, and so was Bug Fables. Honestly, bug-themed games really piqued my interest this year. I know you will, but hey, Valhalla is incredible, so I hope you've been enjoying that. Valhalla is like such a comfort game. You just want to curl up in a blanket, eat your chips, or like whatever snack you have, and just perfect game for that. And just relax, let the story take you where it wants to go. Monster Hunter Rise? Nice. Heard that's a great game. I've never played a Monster Hunter though. Yes, Sagers, love to hear it. Did you play it, or were you just watching streams? Just out of curiosity. Mario Golf Super Rush and Famicom Detective Cup 3. All great choices, yeah. I need to play Metroid Dread. I know that game. That game is on my list. I made a last-second decision to play to buy Pokemon instead. Not because I hate Metroid. I love Metroid, and I can't wait to play Metroid Dread. But I wanted to see, even though I'm not the biggest Gen 4 fan, I wanted to at least see what this has to offer, see how it improves the experience, and just have fun with it. It's been a long time since I played a Pokemon game for the first time. Catch me streaming, gotcha. Catch me streaming Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers when that comes out. Explorers DX. Or Exploration Team DX, probably. There's a game that makes you want to scream, save us from the protagonist of Sam Account Detective. Oh, I see. I'm just gonna give every square like the once over. If I don't find it, I don't find it. It should be like a 50% chance. I do enjoy Barboach, though. You want to play that Ratchet & Clank out? Which one is that? Up Your Arsenal? I know they all have, like, really funny subtitles. Rift Apart. Okay. Gotcha. Oh, thank you very much. I was really... I honestly figured that Great Ace Attorney wouldn't... I knew Great Ace Attorney wouldn't do great with numbers. Not that I care about numbers anyway. But, like, I was honestly pleasantly surprised by how many people were into it. Like... seeing people tell me, go, 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 I want to see the finale, because after I was about to end the stream... That was a really good feeling, and it resonated with me in a big way. It'd been a long time since I got to experience an Ace Attorney game brand new. And more than anything, it was the first time I got to experience Great Ace Attorney, or any Ace Attorney with another person, or a group of people. So that was just, it's such an incredible experience. For two. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything, I promise. But suffice it to say, the fine folks are really into it. My reaction... yeah, I'm really... I try my best to be good about that. Yeah, I don't feel like it's gonna win. Not because I don't want it to win. I would love for it to win. To be honest with you, the game with the most nominations is Deathloop, and I'd literally never heard of the game. Not to say it's not good. Maybe I was just missing out, but like, I had never heard of it, so I didn't have an opinion on it. I'm sure it deserves to be up there and get all the awards or nominations it got, but like. I was actually just watching another streamer and her highlights of Great Ace Attorney today. Just kind of skimming through. You got 250,000 channel points, oh my god. Out of curiosity, I think I asked you this before, Brabbit, but were you experiencing it for the first time as I was playing it, or had you seen it before? Also, major highlight of the ranking stream, besides just what an amazing time I had, Tim said that he would play Great Ace Attorney, and I'm like, yes, queen? That is a series I cannot wait for. Feebas is still here, right? Like, I know I have several spaces to go, and it's ridiculous that they made it this rare. But, like, they didn't move it, did they? This is one place where I'm like, I think he said he's probably gonna record it to be in line with what the other games, but like, I'd look at anything. I didn't even see that part. I was just like, what the fuck did I catch? What did I reel in? Because I didn't see anything. Oh my god, you really just blended in there, buddy. I was like, oh. Oh, no, this way, this way. But he's got a lot on his plate, and I'm not gonna... Obviously, I don't. Whenever it happens. No, I don't have the Super Rod. I don't think you get the Super Rod until... Do you need the Super Rod? I thought you didn't get it until you got the National Dex. Sorry, that was an incredibly bizarre way to formulate that sentence, and it was extremely stream of consciousness. I'm pretty sure you don't get the Super Rod until after you get the... You earn the Nat Dex. That opens up, like, the 3 areas, like the resort area, the, like, other area, and the other area. Maybe the jungle area or something, I don't know. Oh, this is gonna take so long. Oh! Gotcha. Yeah, swarms. Swarms. Forgot about swarms. That's where you talk to Luke's sister, right? Hello, small fellow. No, you go straight on, mate. You go straight on. You're doing a good job. How are the frames looking, by the way? I see we dropped some, but it seems to be, like, not terrible. Good. And sound balance is good. Cool. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Wonder if I'll find a shiny. This is the awkward stage for, like... disgusting. We're at the awkward part of the game where if I found a shiny, I wouldn't know what to do, because, like, I have a team. $528. Oh my god. What they should have done is made at least every single Feebas tile into an only Feebas tile. That would make my life so much easier. If I go through all 528 and I don't catch one, we're not going back. Where's my phone? Oh, it's in my pocket, that's right. You know, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to really form opinions about this game. And I think Ilka did a great job with the game, with what they were given. My complaints come from the fact that they decided not to change anything. I hate that, like, it's a good game, don't get me wrong, I just think it's a little too faithful in some areas when... Like, even Game Freak, when they changed Feebas and Oras, they made it way easier. You just have to fish under the bridge and you'll eventually get one. It's no longer six tiles based entirely on the Dewford Town secret phrase, or trendy phrase, you know? And this is even worse, because it's 4 tiles and they're just random. Every day. At least it's not a completely unobstructed pool. That would be pain. Although, not getting a bite no matter what is kind of painful too. Thank you. You know you're Junie's favorite, but like, I don't want you. You know what? Just for shits and giggles. Yeah, Munchlax is like 1% in very specific honey trees. I never checked any of the honey trees. Oh my god. I slathered honey on like 3 trees and I never checked them. Whoops. I'm gonna take a piece of peppermint bark and I will chow down. Sorry for the noise. My mom bought me those Ghirardelli peppermint bark squares. It's so good. I just like peppermint bark, you guys. It's one of my favorite chocolates. Shame it's so seasonal. Oh, you can just find them underground? Oh, cool. That makes life easier. Speaking of this game, I was watching Josh Jepson's Mario Party with Emil, Tom Fox, and Build a Fajita, and they talked a little bit about this game, and Emil was right that it's a little too, like, he has a copy of Platinum that he really likes, but why would he go back and play a worse version of Platinum? Again, I did not see that Barboach. I was like, what the hell? Is that my imagination, or like, is it not showing up? Sorry. I'm gonna actually eat that bark square now. Yeah, he makes very valid points, but I'm still just not... I'm not having a bad time with it at all. I'm having fun. think that Game Freak would do wise to make these Pokemon games, these remade Pokemon games, into the definitive version of the entire generation. I think that should be their goal, personally. I'm honestly getting tired of this. I might just give up, honestly. At least on an emulator you can speed this up, you know what I mean? Oh god. Meditite looks so weird standing up. That's one thing I never understood about its 3D sprite. The change to 3D made two major mistakes. It made all of the bird Pokemon actually fly. And it also just and it also made like Pokemon like Meditite stop sitting crisscross and start sitting. Do I have to surf? If when there's gonna be a Gen 5 remake, I hope that one happens, because I do love Gen 5. Oh, you can run swim! Oh, thank god. And you can pick items up in the water, okay. See, there are quality of life improvements. Oh, a Revive! Oh, thank god. I don't think I have any Revives. Or would that be Revive? I don't know. What do you guys think? Option A, Revive, or option 2, Revive? Oh my god. Look at him scream! Me too, Chingling! Me too, buddy! Oh, look at the little fella scream. Jesus, 7 years? Oh my god. Like when I found out the Wii U's turning 9. Actually, it is 9. Never mind, it is 9. Okay, Meditite, relax. You're right, Ayers. Its head is a garlic. Wario's gonna eat this thing. Oh, soft sand. Oh, that'd be nice. That would be nice for, Sweetheart. Just like, can't really think of a better move for her. Nina's gonna be a pretty poor choice when we get to Snow Point. The Snow Point routes. Let me out! Do you think they're gonna remake Black 2 and White 2? Let me out. Yeah, like... No, but like, I legitimately cannot decide if they're gonna do that. Can't imagine. I hope they do. Even though the story, in my opinion, is like really ham-fisted in the way it's written, like they're fun games. Hop up. Yep, I got that hop up. This is gonna be Licky Licky's gym to Licky Licky and Sweetheart are gonna tear this gym to shreds. Back. It did try. I find some of the, like, Hugh I think is extremely like one-dimensional as a character and just kind of annoying. Especially because, like, as far as I can remember, Black 2 and White 2 only have one main rival, unlike how there's like 3 different rivals if you count N and BW1. Yeah, they're gonna ignore it probably, which is a shame. It's a completely different game and story. Lophany? Oh, that's not what I expected at all. Damn. Damn, look at Kim Kardashian over here. Oh, wait, doesn't Baby Doll Eyes have priority? Shit. Hot take? I like to hear hot takes. I want to hear your hot takes, thank you. I know I could be using reversal, but it's not as good because I have high health. Thank God. Yeah, no, that's not a hot take at all. That's a pretty normal take to have, I think. But I think I would call that an understandable take. A mild take. Not like your Eminem, you know, like I'm not the first king of controversy, but I am the worst thing since Elvis, but you know. Hello, Palisade. How goes the walk in a winter wonderland? It goes well. We just got out of Coronet because I stopped a little to look for Feebas and I gave up very quickly. But it was good. How are you? Good to see you. Oh boy, this is a bad match. Oh, okay. Really? You went for Zen Head? Weird, but okay. Maybe it read my switch, but didn't think I would switch to Drifblim. You got lucky and got one pretty quickly. Nice. I didn't plan on using it, but my Milotic is my favorite Pokemon, so like within an hour. Okay, yeah. Makes sense. Takedown, huh? You have... No, you have Lightning Rod. I mean, like, it's better than Stomp, I think. But the accuracy and the recoil... No, actually, I think I'd rather have Stomp. Pingu! Pingu! This I think I can take. God, the hail is so annoying. Balthier gave you a Feebas and a Ditto so you can bring up nice. Good old Balthier. Very sweet person. What? What is that? You're not made of wood. You can't do that. Oh. That's annoying. Oh my god. Wrecked, roasted, demolished. That's not right. I'm gonna flood this whole damn mountain with mud. I just got that revive too. I don't want to use that. I think there is a rest house somewhere. Onita? Oh man. No, wait. For a second I thought Gina had thick fat. No, she has own tempo. She marches to the beat of her own drum. Good job, Maria, with your pumpkin ass looking thing. Oh, get me to the... Yeah, get me here, I need this. Thank you. Oh, it's you. Yeah, the snow physics are great. We love it. Oh, Team Galactic was on TV. Yeah, I did dig up a nice spooky plate. I caught in a Zero, yeah. Oh, that's it. Why can't we start the battle zoomed in? If you're gonna zoom in, don't zoom back out. Eduardo, Sneasel. Okay, I can do this. Sneasel's a fun Pokemon. Okay, yeah, I was right to not use that other move. Reversal. Yeah. Yeah. 2 crits in a row, even though I only needed 1. I am an expert. I have 6 badges. How many badges do you have, bitch? Hi. Keeps? What are you keeping? You can have anything. Garrett. It's hailing. Oh no shit, dude. Baton pass. You didn't do any stat stuff, bro. Oh. You think Sweetheart can survive this? We're right next to the lodge. I'm willing to risk it for the biscuit. Oh, she's faster. Oh, God bless. The fact that you're faster than something, Sweetheart, quite impressive. I'm gonna keep my currents. See, this is why I still have Rock Blast after all this time. It's very nice to have. Van Zeke's my boy. Damn right he has no badges. Damn right. Yeah, Ice types would have Erupt. I mean, the first gym leader's Rourke, so like, yeah, and Byron, and yeah, Maylene as well. They do really well against Gardenia, and, well, that's about it, huh? Well, thank you. Really? Oh, that's not what I want, but like, I guess I'll see Snover and Abomasnow at some point. Probably a good use of, my friend here. What an interesting... Hey! You joking? Freaking hell, man. Fine. Nina, get out here. There's a bird that needs plucking. It was gonna use Uproar. Man, you know Frostlass is one of my favorite Pokemon. Probably my favorite Ice type now that I think about it. Alright, back to the blotch. Hello, Mr. Friend, I'm here. Give me my 30-second power nap. I took 2 power naps, now your girl's fully... Wow, that is actually one of the most intact cries we've seen this entire time. Yes, that's right, that's right, that's why we love it. Isn't Abomasnow just out here too? Pretty sure it is. And if for some reason you made it all the way here with your Eevee, you can evolve it. Did I miss Eevee, by the way? I'm pretty sure you can get one by now. Oh, they're smelling each other. That's sweet. That's right. Ram your nose right up in there. Interested in that scent? Well, you got a good whiff of it right there, so good job. Oh, okay. Reach? No. Upper? Oh boy, well do I have the Pokemon for you? Maybe it'll have Drizzle and it'll fucking go into this damn hail. Nope. Yeah, get buffeted, buffeted, I don't... Hippopotas? Hippopotas? I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Y'all excited for the holidays? I love that cry. It's a good moveset for this thing. Yeah, I forgot about Flash Cannon. So Pingu's my fairy counter. Should have thought about it. Eevee's... it's so weird that Eevee's post-game. I guess it makes sense, but like, why? Damn. Is this time gonna be any different, or like, are you safe? What did I use? Okay, I did use it. Hello, Ninja Boy. Oh, that's nice. I love Christmas lights. My mom is putting those up tonight at home. Oh, that's good. Air cutter. Air cutter just sounds like a product that Vince from Slapchop would sell you. Hey guys, it's Vince here with the air cutter. Aw, that's funny. Oh, sweetheart, hang on there, buddy. Honey. It'd be one thing if they tried to troubleshoot all the problems. Damn. Good on you for jumping ship. That sounds like an awful time. Stop it. Stop, please. Oh my god, they can just do that? They can just expel the poison. The friendship mechanic got overpowered recently, Jesus Christ. When did that happen? Was that Gen 6 and 7? Because I don't remember that happening. Was that like Gen 8 or something? Because I played Gen 6 and part of Gen 7, I don't remember that. Big mouth. His mouth looks like Dats from Ace Attorney 6. Sword and Shield, they could do a lot with friendship. Wow, that's brand new to this game. Was it an affection mechanic in the past? Because I wouldn't be surprised if it was an affection mechanic. Gotcha, yep. So I got a text message from my pocket. Pocket texting. Oh, it's nothing really. It appears that, you know... Oh, actually, wait, there's an announcement in Blackboard. Space? Oh, it's just something I've already seen. Never mind. Which Blackboard would know that I've read these things and don't need to see them again. Drink your milky. Yeah, show me. Oh, I guess I could use the rare candy, but by this point I think I'll just do it naturally. Snover. It's so weird to see to see Rhyhorn outspeed anything. Oh shit, well, I didn't mean to do that at all. Well... crap. See what happens when you mash the buttons, kids? I'm not calling you kids for. Not kids. Adults are just big kids, it's true. Yes, 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 yes. I agree. You gotta bounce up and down and like, bam, bam. They're very happy. I mean, that is a great strategy. God, Rock Blast is really freaking good. Okay, what's next? Another Snover? Alright, fine. It's 3 Snovers and a duck. But I think my Pokemon have too high expectations for me if they think I'm going to come up with some fantastic strategy. Hey! Finally. I don't know, but I think it has 90 accuracy or something now. I think it was 85 accuracy at one point. What? Sweetheart is evolving. Sweetheart is evolving. Sweetheart is evolving. Yeah! Look at my big girl. Hammer? Oh, hell yes. Good fucking riddance to reversal. Never used that move, really. The original Pokemon, yeah. We'll see her new stats. Now those are attack stat. Now that is an attack stat. 125, nothing even comes close to that. I'm going to take this opportunity to go back to the lounge, or the lodge. Whoops. Oh my god, that animation's different and it looks really funny. I think Licky is going to be the biggest asset in this gym. For sure. Alright, let's bring her out now, I think. I love that most of my team is female Pokemon, and that was not intentional in the slightest, but like, I'm happy, it's cool. Goodbye, squiggly lines, and hello, blue coin. Goodbye, my squiggly. Goodbye. How are you doing, my friendo? Can't complain, cannot complain. Pokemon's fun, we're trudging through a snowy wasteland of isolation and despair. That's the despair. Look, it's the Ice Rock. Oh no, that's not the Ice Rock. Whoops, that's a person. Am I a Koga ninja? No, I don't think so. I'm more of a Janine ninja. I studied Janine style. Hey, nice. Vector lines, that's pretty pog. Even a little champ. Oh, I want to play with you too, Gina. God, it really says something that, like, I named her Gina Simmons, and yet the only thing I can think of when I say Gina is Gina Lestrade. Wow. Good job, me. I have a feeling that by the time we get to the Champiest, we're gonna be underleveled, but whatever. Does anyone ever reach, like, the level of Cynthia's Garchomp by the time they get to Cynthia? Does that happen? Baton Pass, interesting move, but not exactly what I raised her for. I'm gonna pass on it. If I had raised Nina to be more of a calm mind type, I definitely would have given that to her. Like I didn't. Oh look! Hell yeah. What's this? What's here? Who lives here? Me? Hello. Oh, you had rock climb? Okay, I'll find it. Found it. Is that it? Was it? I feel like it shouldn't have been so comically close to the dude's house. Maybe I can talk to him now and see what's going on. Oh, this is a trainer fight, huh? Yeah. Thunderbolt might not be a terrible move for that for Gina either. That theory. Okay, Pingu. Show them what we got. Show them what we're made of. Yeah. Losh. Yeah. Wait, what? Yeah, that's right. You lost, bitch. How's it feel, bitch? I love you, bitch. I ain't never gonna stop loving you, bitch. Aw, thanks. I had a feeling there'd be a reward for that. I'm glad. What's over here? Is this the way? What's over here then? I think that's the way. So like, what's over here? This must be the ice rock. Isn't this like a haunted house and there's like nobody here? Hello. Bell tag. Thanks. I go back in, is there no person? Yep, that's what I thought. A ghost. Oh, I'm not using my dowsing machine. Screw that. Ghost. What do you got? What do you got? Oh, I'm challenging a black belt and I'm sending out a this guy. I wonder if this thing has dry skin. Good. Looks like it did. Okay, Vanny. Onyx. Okay. Alright. I got Gina here and we're gonna kick some booty. I find it funny that Steelix loses its resistance to fire, and it becomes super effective. Yeah, sure. That Sturdy's gonna help you real good in the hail. Higher attack power, extreme, like way higher. Onyx has a really low base attack stat, higher defense, obviously, and lower speed. I didn't even see you there. Olivia. 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 Wow, it lived. Was not ready for that. Don't seed me. How dare you? Feeding. Feedy bitch. Wow, that's a lot of it. Yeah, I guess it is based on how much HP it takes from me, but still. Now I see why she set that off. Okay, oh, why? Huh. Get out there, my electric killer. Sorry, my water killer, not my electric killer. Jesus. Ah. What the hell? Take it. So much money with the amulet coin. How much money do I even have? Oh my god. Hydrate. Oh, I don't even have a drink. Thank you, Brabbit. I have to go get one. Be right back. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that, blue coin. Yeah, Zanzig says bronze on. Yeah, I was getting the water. Didn't see your comment before I left. Be a fun stream idea. What Pokemon type is each Ace Attorney character? Cutie Lakefront. Don't you need, like... Wait a minute. What's over here? What is over here? I need to know. I thought Lake Cutie was up a hill. Or up a rock climb ledge. Did they change that? That's a weird thing to change. Give me... Oh, my Joy-Con just... Thanks, there it is. Man, right? Joy-Con desync is like really annoying. Yeah, I'll be the champion someday. Just you wait. Would have been cool if today was a Diamond Dust Day, but I didn't have any reason to believe it was. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, I'm pretty... Oh, I thought I pushed her. I was like, hello. Gaga Guwawa. Me too, buddy. No, but like, I'm pretty sure Lake Acuity in the originals, you need rock climb to go there. Because it's up a ledge. Weird change, but alright. There's 12 quick ones. Probably gonna get some timables. These would be nice to have. I have full heals, bitch. I don't need ice heals. I don't need anti-freeze. I don't need to spray anti-freeze on my Pokemon. Yeah, I'm not allowed to go in because I'm not the champiest, but I will be. Tor chick. Oh, I know who you are. I know you very well. Falling for that shit. Cause she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirt. She's cheercat illumination. What is the point of this man? Maybe it's one of those things where it'll become apparent later, but I doubt it. Hey, I doubt it. Oh my god, it's deep-ass snow. Shovel, why don't you? Let's go in there and fight Candice. I know her name is Candice. I hate this gym. This puzzle is annoying as fuck. I do like how reflective it is, though. Yes, canned dice. Gem's pretty though, I have to admit. Ice Shard makes you move first. Look at you. You think you're so cool and so unique. Guess what? You're not. Anton. I think I had to thin my tongue. It's kind of sad like that. And I'm gonna send that a photo. Not an ice type. Get out of here. You probably got some ice moves, but don't make it ice type. Bitch. I may regret this, but at least if I do, I'll go down having gotten the double money. Yeah, what a read. You have got to be kidding me. Alright. I'll send out Van Zeeks. We'll do it this way. I don't give a shit. Do it again. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Don't use Crunch, which I'm weak to. Use that instead. Love it. Will I regret this? Maybe? I don't know. I think the worst thing about Pokemon gyms is that you have to resolve the puzzle after you make it to the gym leader. And if you leave, you have to resolve the puzzle. E. The only thing you have? Yeah. What the stakes? Yeah. Just one ice heal. Have it. Congratulations, I guess. Good for you, Brenna. Bless me. Blessez-moi. No, blesse doesn't mean bless. It means, like, hurt. Hey, Snowver. Snow warning burr. I swear, sometimes the Joy-Con buttons just don't respond to me. Yeah, I did say I accidentally said hurt me, yes. Correct. cannot believe it. Can't believe you've done this. Isaiah. Look at these non-ass ice types coming in here. These non-ass ice. These non-ice ass types. I don't know what the hell I was trying to say there. There's a very distinct weakness to ground running among my team, huh? My dude probably has water absorb. What's the D colon for, Brabbit? What's got you frowning? Bruinen. The Bruin Doodah. What's the Bruin Doodah coming in on? Tired. Oh. This gym annoys the hell out of me. Why does this gym like this? Alicia Keys. Damn, this is a nice outfit, I have to admit. I have to say, this is a very good outfit. I have a Bone Claws, yeah, that's not gonna do you any good. That's not gonna do shit once I kill you. Their claws can be as honed as they want, but against me, the ultimate in declawing Sneasels? Yeah, you wish. Ah. Stay mad. Tentacruel, why? Like they didn't have enough ice types, so this is actually probably exactly what it was. Sludge Bomb. I think my favorite animation for Sludge Bomb is from the 3D Gen 3 games like Coliseum and XD. Well, particularly XD. I think it has a great animation in that. Alright, Miss Keys. Come on. I can maintain my cool. Don't worry about me. Why don't you worry about yourself, Savannah? Your name is literally out of Georgia. Like, you can't handle it here. Wow, wow, wow. That drizzle, wow. Man, wow. I'm Owen Wilson, guys, wow. Back off, jack off. I didn't touch your wife. She was coming on me. Wow. Ciao. I hope this thing has Cloud9. That'd be so funny. Damn. I've never been to Georgia. This furthest? No, okay. I've been as far south as Florida, in the States, but like I've never been to Georgia. Oh, you are in trouble now. I'd like to go sometime. Georgia seems nice. There's so many states that I want to go to, namely like all of them. Oh, you have sturdy, you little bitch. Wow, thank you, Pingu. Yeah, I feel that, but there's so many places to see. All of them are different. But even to NOLA. Didn't have a single ice type. What a loser. What? Alright, now have enough. Come on now. Hey, come on now. Yeah, road trip would be fun. Is this it? No, I missed it. Okay. How? How? Oh, okay, I think I see. I think I see. Damn you, stairs. I hate stairs. I've always hated stairs. Yeah, I've never been west of my own state. There's a lot of places I could go. Yeah. I don't know, I just think, personally for me, there's too many sites to see. Problem is, I can't see them all before I die. What's that, rabbit? Anyway. God, I fucking hate this gym. Oh my god. Whoever designed this gym, I have words for them. Ice puzzles are fine. It's this ice puzzle that gets me. I have no idea what to do. Here? Yeah, okay. What do I do with this knowledge? Go over here? Oh. Oh, wait, over here? No, because there's stairs in the wall. Oh my. You have to do this in the parking lot when you get to the car. Is it that cold where you are, Ace? I don't exactly know where you are, but like, damn, that's cold. Can I do this? No, because that doesn't break the... Oh. Okay. I'm so confused and tired, and I just am dying. My family is dying. Help me budget. Oh, I did it. I don't know how I did that, but like, how do I get back to the entrance? Here we go. Well, I would rather die than do that again, so I think I'm just gonna go on with what I have. Candace. Let me see your 3D model pretending to be a 2D sprite. Yep. Minnesota. Oh, hey there. Yeah, I would also admire the surrounding view, honestly. It's very pretty. Damn, Gina's kicking some ass. Perfect. Now I can get the amulet coin effect. I had a feeling she had something that I would be able to use Drifloon for, so I didn't lead with it. Oh my god, did it hang on with 1 HP to make me... Yep. Oh, it's still gonna get buffeted by Hail. Wow, what a way to go. Hey, titty leg, come on. Yeah, that's right. Man, this affection mechanic is kind of broken. Or I guess friendship now is kind of broken. Missed, no. Metal sound. Doesn't that lower special defense? No, I don't like that. I don't want that. How? How did I outspeed that thing? There's no way. Something must have happened there. Must have used some, like, low priority move. Yeah, get Licky Licky back out here. Show him who's boss. Mm-hmm. Obama still looks so strange. It probably has a Yamcha berry or Yamcha berry or something. No, no. You loser. Get fucked. I hate your damn gym. I think that's fine. It's basic, but I mean, she's an ice gym leader, so the fact that she doesn't have much clothing on, like she's not layered up, shows that she's like really used to the cold and can function at just fine without bundling up, and I think that's cool. Was that the Emperor Avalanche, which I didn't let you use? Okay. I made it up. Eh. It's a little too strange. We're going to the moon. Moon ride, moon ride, moon ride, moon ride. One step. No one cares. No one is interested in anything that Machoke was selling. Or this one. Why are there even Machoke out here? Why does that make... Why is that the thing? Doesn't need to be. What am I supposed to do? Oh, great. Oh, maybe... Oh, I have to check out, like, Verity. Was I supposed to do that first? Oops. I don't know. I don't know if I would want Machoke cookies, to be honest with you. Okay, fried horn. Yeah. Me and my friend. Me and my friend. A very, very happy friend. Friendship. Hey. Yeah, I'll help Lucas, don't worry. Oh, they're double battles. Oh, cool. That wasn't even a critical hit, that just did that? Oh, wow. Good for you. Top you, Brittany. Sucker Punch? Yeah, I don't think so. And this will do, I think, more damage because it's focused on one target. Yep. Why are we oh my, why do you have so many? 6. Why did one of you have 2 Glameow? Why are these battles long? Why is Drapion fast? An interesting thing. Yeah, I liked rotation battles. Triple battles were also pretty fun. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna get rid of Bug Bite. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of Bug Bite for this. The berry thing is nice, but like, eh. Now all 3 of its moves have a high critical. All 3 of its damaging moves have high critical hit chance, and it has Sniper. I love Team Galactic's music, even though their design is so stupid. This is unfortunate. Yeah, the bowl cuts are something. They really are something. Holy shit! Do it again. Bronzong's fantastic, actually. I used to hate fighting this thing because I never knew what weakness it had. Oh. Yeah. And that was double. Yeah, you thought you did something, huh? But how have I never thought to use Bronzong before? My heart is warmed. Hey Mars, you look like a Funko Pop. Why did she have question marks? That's so strange. Why do they do that? Whatever. I like Mars. Love that skirt. Guys, does this mean this is the stream where I'm finally going to hear Cyrus's new battle theme? It could be. How did you survive that? In what world was that okay for you to survive? Were you supposed to do this before fighting Candace? You turn into what? How about you turn into mincemeat when I'm through with you? Yep. Wait, they have Yuxi? Yeah, is Ass Face safe? Oh my god. One day I'll remember that I named him Ass Face. You could have done it before Candace. Yeah, well, I feel like I didn't. I feel like it would have been a little more challenging if I did it before Candace. So close. Shut up, titty leg. Berry. Oh, Ass Face. It's okay, Ass Face. These things happen. Oh my god, one of my favorite songs in the game is actually coming up. Oh, thank god. And we're out of that hail hole. Oh my gosh. Feels so good to be out of the hail hole. Do I have to go... maybe I have to go to the warehouse and get in that way. What is this? How did you drop the storage key? Oh, nice. Stop hitting that button. Ooh, a Dusk Stone. This is where you can evolve, Baggius or Misdreavus. Oh, I love this song. It's a good song. I think I like the original better. Hey, Golbez. I think that's a video game character or something. I heard Tim reference it. Or them, I guess. First intruder. Somehow I believe that, but also it's wild. Because no one else has really tried. Oh, Dustox. Okay, cool. Might as well. If I'm gonna use what I have, I might as well get stab out of it. God, Bug Buzz is a great move. It's like the bug version of Psychic, and it's just fantastic. I used that on my Beautifly back in Oras. It was just so good. Does it need to say that they're awaiting my directions every time? I feel like that's not necessary. No, I don't think so. Maybe there is. I can't think of one if there is one. There is a there's a fighting version of Fire Blast called Focus Blast. No, it's not a triangle. Neither of those are good on Bug. Neither fighting nor Psychic are good on Bug. Bug beats Psychic, Psychic beats Fighting, but Fighting doesn't beat Bug. Oh no, work panels. Yeah, but what are the odds of you actually winding up for a karate chop and hitting a fly? Man, Glamia's like laughably frail. Flies have like really good perception though, they could still dodge, I think. Scald, oh that's a great move. Oh, that's a fantastic move. Pingu could learn it, it would actually be fine if it replaced Surf. I'd be completely fine if that replaced Surf, but we'll see. What is Scald power again? Shit. 80. 80 versus 95. Ooh, that's a little rough actually. Scald is one of my favorite moves because it's a water type move that burns, and like that's so nice. And the burn chance is pretty high too. Oh, this animation is so long. Yeah, you're not getting a promotion because I'm gonna kick your ass. That's fine. I'm gonna stay a grunt for the rest of your lowly grunt life. One thing I will say about Pokemon Coliseum and XD, I really like how all of the peons had names. It was fun. God, the Galactic arc takes so long, too, because we have to climb all of Mount frickin' Coronet. Because, like, here's the thing, some of the peons would remember you. That would be nice. Got a Cascoon at level 34. What is wrong with you? Oh wait, I went this way. That's the way I came from. Yeah, no, I defy you because I understand that you're stupid and bad at what you do, so... What are you gonna do with that fart? Butt face? That's a literal ass face, look at that. Yeah, well, I smell you, because you haven't showered in like 17 years, you melee fan. Does it look like it says stinky oops? Yeah, it is. Oh, I need the key. Oh, damn it. At least I beat all the trainers in the way. Are we gonna walk in on Cyrus giving a speech? Because that's a pretty good scene. Dirty? Who do you think you are? Get out of my way. God, these scientists remind me of something. Or some character. Wish I could remember who, though. Dab all you want, it's not gonna help. Sludge Bomb. Well, that would be great if it was for a Pokemon that wasn't Drapion. Oh, the Galactic Key. Cool. I think this is the way out. Oh. Let me see what is this way. Oh, we're here. Okay, great. It's a nice detail that you actually, when you walk on the wet floor, it splashes a little bit. Dazzling Gleam, that is a move that I cannot get any use out of with this current team. Unfortunate. Okay, but where do I go? What do I do? Was there more to that room? There might have been, actually. Hold on. Nope, okay. Wanted to make sure. Why am I going this way? I'm scrolling over the entire place to see if I missed something. Oh, I have to go into the Galactic, on the main floor. That's right, this is just a loop. That's why I put that exit there. Oops, I'm dumb. Big dumb. Wow, everything is just a barrel, huh? Full incense, huh? What does that do? Makes the holder bloated and slow moving. Okay, interesting. Oh, now the galactic music, now the hideout music plays everywhere. Okay, cool. Oh, shit, I wanted a double battle. What are you gonna do about it? You piece of garbage, you are not very good at your job and bad. You smell like ass and your haircut looks really, 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 really stupid and dumb and it sucks. Just like you and all of your cohorts, you are all bad. Why on earth are you still doing this stupid shit? That's right, I said it, and you are not that cool. You look really dumb, and your hair probably smells really bad, like you, and your outfits are ugly, and everything about you is so bad and stinky, and it's really bad. I need to learn more. Because Cyrus is really not good at what he's doing if he's hiring people. Not really. That was stupid. Oh my lord. Grunt. Oh. Yeah. Why do I sing these words? It doesn't make any sense. How are any of you still following at this point? Oh my god. Yes. I talked with them about it, and they were down. But you know, they get tired. But everybody gets tired, so like, who knows? You were watching TV. What research? You're so lazy. You're watching TV instead of doing your work, and it stinks because you are bad. Oh, kada. You are trying so very hard to be anything but the way that you are, cause you are lazy by nature, and it is not good for your work environment. You are really bad at your job, and you don't want boss to know that you're doing absolutely not. Okay. Yeah, you do look pathetic, actually, thanks. Team Galactic commercial. The words I'm singing now, nothing more than meow to it. Yes. This is a bad time to do this, but like... I dig that. This is a really bad time to do this, I know. Oh, this is the Oh. The same sticker, okay. I didn't realize you could put stickers on the back. We'll do this later. We'll do that later. I'm not ready to spend all my time with that. Sleep in the bed, silly. Hold on, what was the other way? Oh, this is the problem with Team Galactic's hideout in the board panels. You never know. Oh, an empty room. Love it, love it. Well, that makes my life a little easier. Did I just walk over that? Oh, okay. What's over here? I wonder. This is the item, right? Oh, a Max Revive. Okay, great. Thank God. Yeah, the song is the song's still good. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's missing something that the original song had. I am enjoying my unescorted, unauthorized trip through the HQ, actually. Thank you. I wonder how TGA is going. Oh, if only it was a critical hit. Open World Sonic, really cool, actually. That's exciting. That's awesome. Another 3D Sonic game. Could have used cross poison there. I guess I keep forgetting that this thing has the poison barb attached to him. Or her. Yeah, no, no, no. Go back, go back. Aftermath, that stinks. Literally. Only thing worse than a bad fart is when it lingers, I guess. Sticks around, you know? Let me do what I want. I feel that. Three. Oh lord. Let's check. My phone, I gotta take this. Hold on. Oh, yo, did Lady Dimitrescu win an award? Or is that who Big Lady is? Incredible. You know, I saw a video of Resident Evil Village, and they replaced Lady Dimitrescu with Van Zieks, and it made me actually kind of want to play the game. I don't do well with horror. We know this, but if I have somebody with me, I'll do way better. But like, did I go in the Cyrus already? What happened to the speech you were supposed to give? Is that only in platinum? Oh my. What's over here? I think Sergeant Dr. Funk was playing it, but he finished it. Alright, we're gonna fight Cyrus. Is it finally... I think we're gonna fight Cyrus. Is it finally time for me to hear that sweet, sweet Cyrus battle music? I didn't hear... Oh, I see. You must be the trainer I've been hearing about. Foolhardy one that's trying to stand up to Team Galactic. Although I'd hardly expected to see that the trainer is a mere child. I'd heard that our commanders had a rough time with you. I know why you're here. I can sense it in you, with my lack of nose. It's about Yuxi, Mesprit, and Azelf, correct? You want to save them. I no longer have any need for them. I am finished with them. If your heart aches to go save them, go right ahead. I care less. You'll save me the trouble of disposing of them. But I must say, you are a remarkable specimen. Those Pokémon have nothing to do with you, do they not? But you still came to rescue them out of pity? Such pitifully useless emotions. It's illogical and irrational. Pity and compassion are products of the weak and lacking human heart. You were compelled to come here by such vacuous sentimentality. I will make you regret paying heed to your heart. Finally. Hey Robin, just in time for the big song. Love this song. Hope you're having a great night, Robin. Nice. My last Pokemon. He's freaky looking. Oh, you're dead. Unless this misses, you're dead. Interesting. And quite curious. Yeah, no, there's something wrong with him, oh. See, you are indeed strong. And the basis of your power is compassion towards Pokémon. How wasteful. Such emotions are but mere illusions. And, like all illusions, they fade over time until death banishes them forever. That is why I have abandoned all emotions as useless sentimentality. But that doesn't matter. I doubt you will ever understand my position. That said, I recognize that you are strong and courageous to come alone. This is your reward. Oh, thank you! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Master Ball is the ultimate Pokeball. It will unfailingly catch any Pokemon in the wild. It is not anything that I require. Unlike you trainers, I do not make Pokemon my friends or partners. Unlike other Team Galactic members, I don't use Pokemon as tools. Instead, I make the power of Pokemon my own. And he's weird looking, I don't know. You wish to save the Pokemon from the lakes? Take the war panel ahead. I'm off to Mount Coronet. That's correct. Mount Coronet, where you and I first met. I will ascend the mountain to its peak, and then put an end to everything. No, I will bring about a new beginning for everything. Yeah, no, he's not intelligent. No, he is, but like, he's not... You don't know. Next game. Am I gonna have to fight Saturn now? Its eyes are always shut. Why do we have to fight Saturn? Okay, this is so weird. Oh, Saturn, the 3D was not kind to you, buddy. No, Bulkhead is not a good look. Alright, Van Zeeks, show them what you're made of. If the sight of my iron-heeled Wellington doth offends, pray do forgive the discourtesy. Is that thief? Oh. Thief have an item? I think Saturn. I think Saturn might be the most reasonable of the grunts, honestly. Yeah, Bobs are fine. I don't know. Do I have to really go out the way? Oh my. Yeah. Oh, yeah, also, I didn't respond, but yeah, Robin, cults are something else. Here's the problem. I don't know which entrance to Mount Coronet to take, so I think, you know, despite how Saturn and the grunts ended up, I do think Mars and Jupiter are genuinely pretty. I like how it doesn't tell you how long the repels last anymore. I think you have to go through this one here, Celestic again. I know, Robin, I know. Dream away. Hey! Great, I could just, like... I was thinking about this, actually. Oh, Rindo Berry from a Rhino. A Rindo Berry. I was thinking about giving Drifblim Psychic, rounding out that coverage even more, because I find myself not using Phantom Force. I think it might be a good call, actually, giving it. Just sort. I literally never use Phantom Force, and the one time I did use it, I ended up dying due to hail, so I think it's a sign that it needs to go. Dark Pulse would also be a great move, but I'm thinking about giving it Fling. Oh look, an Escape Rope. Rompe, na 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 na. Oh, Heart Home. We gotta go to Heart Home. Okay, well thank God that person is there to tell me where to go. Not that one. This one. Imagine, that, you know what? I'm thinking about it. I really love, I've always really loved, but I really love Mars's dress. It's just nice. Hello, not Fantina. Goodbye, not Fantina. Another what? Such a strange thing. What do you really love, Blue? Hello. Yahoo! Yahoo! Yeah, trainer customization is nice. It's a little bit limited in this one because you only get like you get like pre-built outfits that you just have to pick from. Like personally, I would have put on some knee-high socks with that skirt, but that's just me. Knee or thigh, I don't know. Point is high socks. I think they just look fashionable. The very obvious answer to what you really love. No, I couldn't. Based on the context I couldn't know. You know, I really miss the olden days. I don't know if this is still the case, actually. I really like when the opponent uses Curse, but they have, like, no HP left. They don't have enough HP to use it, so they just end up making themselves faint. I think that's really funny. That seems like something they would have changed. Oh, you're the hero. What's the point of coming up here? Right now, I'm busy going to Mount Coronet, actually, so... Lead. Lead. What Dawnstone? That's me. Oh, protein. Yes, it's okay, guys. We got protein. You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. No, not protein. Protein. Yeah, there's a difference. Yeah. Escape again. Rompe. not the right spot. Oh, is it actually? Do I have to go around the outside? 2 trailer park girls go around the outside, round the outside, round the outside, you know? Throat in gin. What's over here? Iron. Iron. A bottle of iron. Haha, my name. I've got a bottle of iron here to save the day there. You know. Oh, it's over here, dumbass. Rock slide. Oh, that's better than rock blast, I guess. Although, is it though? Huh. Didn't think about this. 75. But rock blast has like 25 power. Yeah, no. If it hits 3 times or more, it's either the same or better. I think it has better accuracy too. No, it's the same. Okay. Revive! Shit! Damn it. Sure, we all saw that coming. Slow down a little bit, because for some reason you gotta be real slow here. I haven't heard the name G. Would you like to use another what game? Would you like to use another one? What the fuck is this? Oh, cool. Neat. No, I think I'm gonna keep Rock Blast for a little bit. Because if it hits 5 times, it just straight up better than Rock Slide. A Mark's rival, yeah. I guess that would be Kirby. Oh, shit. Woo! How did it do so much damage? Oh. Your sweetheart, I'll save you. Damn. See, like, that's the thing with the wishing to be praised thing. Well, Marx is a bad guy in Kirby, so probably the closest thing to an actual, like, antagonist in Superstar. I guess you could say DDD is kind of an antagonist, but, like, what is DDD doing that's so bad besides stealing food? Which I don't understand, because, like, as the king, you should have access to all that shit anyway. Okay, Team Galactic, relax. That's called taxes. I wonder if this has the other move. Nope, it has heat proof. That's right. Why can't you? Slam has such ridiculously low accuracy. No. Why can't it work like that? What is the logical reason that attacks could theoretically not work like that? I'm really not spending much time on Mount Coronet. This takes a while. Oh, a nougat. J'aime les nougat. Money in and of itself doesn't get your road paved either. What the hell? When did this song get so good? Way to ruin the mood, dude. Would you like to use another one? When did this song become, like, so good? It does look like something would... It does sound like something Poulter would say. Because I think it reminds me of, well, what would you do if I grabbed the second one? It always has been that banging. Oh my god. Where have I been? Sweetheart's gonna absolutely crush Volkner's gym. Oh my god, I'm so excited. This team is really coming together, honestly. Like, they're fantastic. Thanks. Thanks, sweetheart. No, I don't remember this song being so good. You're telling me this song has always been this good. Damn. I guess it's so. Menace Shock? What's that gonna do? That's what I thought. Good job. This I'm so proud. I was worried about this team actually because I feel like they have a lot of common weaknesses. Oh, it's time, y'all. It's time. Although Drill Run does have its uses. Stomp, whatever.
Pussy.
Gee, hi Rosie. How you doing?
Just ended. Also, I'm eating. So
Nice. What were you doing?
I was eating.
Nice.
No,
Where am I going? What do I do?
So, rip. Guys, did I say Final Fantasy? I meant to say SMT5 did not win.
Oh, what did win?
Tales of Arise, which I'm like, I haven't played it, but it must be good because
Mhm.
my older cousin came up to me and be like, hey, do you have like can I borrow your PS4 controller to play it? So I'm like, okay, it must be good if he's asking me for a controller to play it. And then actual game of the year. Sorry, spoilers. I'm just gonna spoil the entire fucking Game Awards.
Sure.
It Takes Two.
Oh, that's fine.
Game of the year. Yeah, I'm okay.
It wasn't against any of the nominees this year, so it's like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Final Fantasy 14 won ongoing game of the year, so you know what? That's a win.
Is it really ongoing if it's over?
Well, the MMO is still ongoing. They literally just launched Endwalker. I mean, I'm sure the end of the main story, maybe.
Hey Mayo, how you doing?
You know. Yeah, I know. It seemed like Deathloop was gonna be like top contender, but I guess not. Yeah, they had Imagine Dragons as usual.
Well, they always have Imagine Dragons. Like, what's the point?
Always. Okay, I'm gonna eat and mute because nobody will cheer.
Yeah, go masticate somewhere else. Why pay to Imagine Dragons when you can do it for free? That's right.
The ongoing part refers to waiting to queue. True. Rudo.
Also, hi Paperstar, how are you? In disbelief that the song for Mount Coronet has been this good the entire time. Game Awards were stupid as I know. What did we expect though? Anything different? I'm gonna be real with you. I still think Great Ace Attorney Chronicles was my game of the year. To literally no one's surprise. Why do they let you use HMs to bypass shit when, like, you have all of the HMs? Like, you have to have them.
Oh, right. Also, Sonic 2 trailer. It was good.
Oh,
I
nice.
liked it.
Yeah, the movie trailer is good.
Oh, both of you are here.
Something with the Sonic game.
Both of you are here.
Oh, do you mean Breath of the Wild?
Sonic Breath of the Wild, hell yeah.
Yeah, do you mean Sonic Breath of the Wild?
That's exciting, an open world Sonic game.
It's definitely very strange. I'm
I
not
wanna see-
sure how I feel about the direction they're taking it, because it's just like,
I would love to see gameplay of it though, but we'll
it's
see
weird.
down the line.
It's a little too real.
Either way.
Also, Hideo Kojima, I think, producing a movie, directing a movie.
He's working with Guillermo.
Guillermo del Toro, of course.
Interessante.
Yes. It's interesting. I mean, now people can finally, run fast, eat ass.
Yeah.
Sonic. So I guess
As we've
that's what
always
everyone
wanted. Yeah. I want to know if there's a boost button. I don't think Sonic needs the boost gameplay anymore. How you doing, Flarga?
I'm alright. Game Awards was alright.
Yeah, that's what more can you want, really?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the game that got game of the year was surprising, actually.
Was it It Takes Two? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it takes two.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take that. I'll accept
Yeah,
that.
we all thought it was gonna be Deathloop.
I don't have anything against Deathloop, but like,
No.
I always root for underdogs, so.
Oh yeah, I was still rooting for Dread because Dread is a really good game.
Yeah, I want to play it really badly. I bought this over Dread on impulse, and I don't regret it, but like, because I know I'll get to Dread, but this, I feel like the market for this is more fleeting.
Okay, Merry Christmas, why I'll get you dressed.
You dare.
It is the season.
No, I won't allow it. I'm a pretty shitty gift receiver.
That's also true, Mile.
Ratchet,
Oh man,
Psychonauts.
I'm going on
Aww.
Amazon. I wonder if there's codes for Metroid Dread.
Also, I do have the list up for when we get to it.
Team Galactic Grunt.
Oh man, it'd be pretty crazy if I got you that's the digital code for Metroid Dread, huh?
This is crazy, just crazy if I just slipped into your DMs.
I know, right? Crazy.
But the thing about the 662 is the guy was really enthusiastic about winning too, which is
Yeah,
great to see.
that's good. I love it when the person receiving the award is legitimately flabbergasted. It's so wholesome.
He literally said, "Fuck the Oscars."
Good. Do we need the Oscars anymore?
No, I don't think so.
I'm only there for the performances, honestly. Man, this team is like really rounding out. As I was just talking about how much like I love this team. It's so strange, and I didn't think I would like it as much as I did because like there's a huge ground weakness going on here. I mean, I did love Parasite. I could go on about how much I loved Parasite. And don't worry, I didn't forget. We'll get to the rankings in a bit. I just wanted to wait for Rosie to finish eating.
I'm almost done.
Okay. I didn't expect you guys to be here so soon. I thought I would at least have time to climb Mount Coronet.
Surprise!
Yay!
Full of surprises. Van Zeeks is getting bigger.
The one thing I like is that some of the games were cool to see, like, we're getting a new Dune game, which is actually kind of cool to see.
Oh yeah, Elden Ring.
Trust me, Paper Star, I don't get it either. What did you say, Flarg? I'm
Also-
sorry.
There's a new Dune game,
Oh, yes,
like a
yes.
Dune RTS, which is interesting.
Which game?
Just Dune.
Where am I
Oh.
going? What do I do?
I
Oh.
definitely missed that.
It's based on it's an RTS series, which is actually cool to see as another coming back as an RTS. I'm curious
Oh,
what
I
the
may need
people
that link
behind.
to the tier list again. Hold on.
I can post it back up too.
Yeah, post it. Also, we should have pinned it maybe.
Oh, that would have been smart. This is so.
Wait, it's all Ace Attorney characters, right?
Yes,
Yeah, it's up to DGS2.
it's
Which
definitely
shouldn't take
in the
that
chat.
long.
It's
Okay,
definitely
I
in
found
the. It's definitely
Never
in our
mind.
chat if you
I
search for it.
I just posted it again
Alright. Just so.
for people that are too lazy to scroll up.
God damn, I keep trying every time I go to DMs, I check the pins and it's like when when you love, but she keeps sucking. It keeps
When
me
you
alive.
nut, but she keeps sucking. Oh, that's
yeah,
such a good
weird.
picture.
Just put. Just.
Whoa.
It makes me laugh every time. It's funny.
Wait, am I in the wrong place? Am I going in the wrong direction? Is this where I go? I don't understand. This seems right.
Yeah, I think you're like outside, and then you have to like
Oh, here we
go
go.
back to the
Okay.
side and then go. Yeah, you're around here. Yeah, I wonder how you'll do against Bertha, because you know all ground types. But
Yeah,
you know,
but I
ground
have
types are slow.
But I have Empoleon.
So yeah, true.
Hello. When Team Galactic gets out of here, I'm really curious what's behind that. It's probably the dragon plate actually that's behind that grunt. Bronzer. Oh.
Make it some water while you're doing some Pokemon.
No worries. Want to start at like 11:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of time to wait, back. Words.
Yeah, I feel like it gets the, just like it helps get the like whatever pre-call jitters out of the way or whatever. Just like jumping into a call can be like, what do I say? So I feel like talking a little bit makes that feel better.
Well, in the meantime, have this this galactic grunt you're facing and have this F.
I love your new emotes.
You're so good. Thank you again, Rosie. All right, be right back. Water.
Welcome. Yes, I make them. Give me money, y'all.
I do that sometimes too, Mayo. I'll jump into a call knowing that the person can't hear me because the streamer, like, wouldn't hear me come in because of streamer mode. I'm just like, well, guess I'll wait for an opening. Yes, yes, yes. Shill that emote. Grunt. You're not supposed to work. Oh my, I didn't want to work you over, dear. Didn't even buy you dinner first. Welcome back.
I'm back. Thank you.
Oh my god, there's so
I'm
many
not-
grunts. I hate it.
It's tiring after a while.
And like we just did the galactic hideout, so it's like, come on. This is a heat proof or a levitate bronzer. Heat proof. What is that? Oh, I see.
The emote?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's zoom on the guy.
Hmm. I really need to take Sweetheart out of front. Jesus Christ. You don't get the Protector until, like, post-game, do you?
Nope. Kind of
This
annoying with that.
This friendship mechanic is so overpowered. They can just get rid of status ailments.
Oh yeah, it's busted.
What the
What's on your
hell?
team, What's on your team right now?
What's on my team? Hold on one second. I'll go
Also,
through.
sometimes you'll just have sturdy kicking
Yeah.
too.
You got
So
it.
Do we get? Oh shit! I didn't mean to switch him up. My bad. My bad.
I saw a Drapion there.
There is a Drapion there, yes.
Drapion's great. I like him.
I've never used.
Drapey, I'm more like grip. Yeah, got
Not wrong. Not wrong.
One
got
second.
him.
Let's see, summary. Okay. We got Pingu, Britney Spears,
These.
Van Zeeks, Gina Simmons, Nina, and Sweetheart. It's a very I've never used, except for Pingu, I've never used any of these, so
Nice team setup.
yeah.
I like Driploom actually. Nice choice.
Drifloom is very fun to use, I've noticed.
I can see that.
Super neat.
I did use a Ghost Flying before, but it was in Sun and Moon.
Hmm. What Ghost Flying is there in Sun and Moon?
It's the Island Bird.
Oh.
Or Chikiru, I think it's called.
Hmm.
Except in because I use an all ghost team in Sun and Moon.
Gotcha.
Because I used
Oricorio. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, Oricorio. So Oricorio, Duskduai, Alolan Marowak, Jellicent, Mismagius,
Hmm.
and Mimikyu.
Good choices all around. Yeah, Drifloon was the MVP against Maylene. All of my Pokemon have had like their time to shine, honestly. Candace got absolutely steamrolled by my team. And that obligatory Candace stick fit in your mouth. That's funny. Is this Spear Pillar? Did I make it? This okay, I hate this. I was talking about this before people came in. I hate when when the repel comes off, it's just like, would you like to use another one? Like, what is that? What does that mean? So stupid, but no, I would not. Because we're done. And I think this is the door to Spear Pillar, which is really unfortunate.
Yes, it is, Rabbit. There's a reason why I have a emote of Mismatches and Mischievous too.
No, but if you would like to register. Oh my goodness. I love Tim's Koopa Kid comics. Anyway, let me go into intermission while I get stuff ready for this.